Part 60. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 591. Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao were investigating the case and falling in love in Shangning. Her Majesty the Queen welcomed two long-lost guests in the imperial city. Princess Jingcheng from Shu Kingdom and her lover Yunting. Perhaps it is true that the kind of master he has will have the same kind of subordinates, and the kind of friends he can make with the kind of people he has. Her Royal Highness the Princess came all the way, but she was traveling in a simple carriage, just like an ordinary business couple, traveling all over the mountains, rivers, and lakes, but she did not show the slightest trace of the arrogance that a royal noble should have. It took a full month and a half to get from Shu to Dongling. Yaqingqin's skin, which had become fair and supple after being raised in the imperial capital for more than a year, had turned honey-colored due to the wind and Sunday. It was clear at a glance that she had a great time on the road and was not worried at all. The skin will be attacked by the spring breeze. Fortunately, they all traveled by carriage, and they were on the carriage when they were on the road. Otherwise, if the wind blew down for more than a month, they would have turned into black charcoal. Although the skin is a little dry and has lost some moisture, this face is still good looking. Ye Qingcheng looked in the mirror and applied Her Majesty the Queen's skincare balm on his face. As he applied it, he spoke confidently, "This princess now has a distinguished status. In Shu Kingdom, I am no longer the beautiful princess I used to be. Whether my skin is good or not does not affect my status. Instead, Yunting should worry about losing favor and need to take good care of herself." Nan 11 was leaning on a low couch beside her, quietly watching Yaqingqin's skillful movements in caring for his skin, and smiled casually, "You make the decision in Shu now." "Well, Yunting has contributed a lot." Ye Qingcheng nodded, smeared it all over his face, and then turned to look at Nan 11, "Even though he looks like a little white rabbit in front of me, he is actually just pretending to be a pig and eating the tiger. Guy, if he wants to take revenge, his methods will naturally not be gentle. In 1.5 years, he completely overturned the power of the court. Now, I am more powerful and comfortable in Shu Kingdom than the Queen Mother." Nan 11 raised her eyebrows slightly. "Where is the emperor?" "He was sleeping soundly." Ye Qingcheng washed his hands in the basin nearby, sat back in front of the dressing table, and combed his hair in front of the mirror. "Although I have no special feelings about the matter of patricide and regicide, Yunting, I am not allowed to kill my father, so I can only let him fall into a coma first, but fortunately it will not affect the overall situation. After a pause, I am now the emperor of the kingdom of Shu. I have a son, Yunting's nephew. He is only 9 years old this year. He is currently studying. I plan to pass the throne to him when he is 12 years old. Let him take the throne." Nan 11 was silent for a long time. Ye Qingcheng was also a strange woman. She had never heard of such a method of revenge. She directly took away her father's empire and passed it on to the victim's son. Although for the Yun family, if they had a choice, they would definitely want to be reunited as a family, and they would not care about the blood-stained throne, but he is gone and cannot be restored. This way of revenge can be regarded as the most profound lesson for the Ye family. It is happy and hearty. Nan 11 was silent for a moment and nodded slowly, "That's fine, but there are many princes in Shu. You and Yunting probably put in a lot of effort to seize the throne in such a short time." "Actually, it's not bad." Ye Qingcheng smiled, "There are many princes in Shu Kingdom, and there are also a lot of idiots. The fact that Ye Yan's whereabouts is unknown is enough for me to take advantage of. In addition, I have done enough in the years before meeting Yunting. It's not difficult to start planning, but Yun Rui is still young, so Yunting and I will have to worry about it for a few more years." After saying that, she sat quietly on the chair, staring at the bronze mirror blankly, and said after a long time, "Actually, I don't care about the throne, and Yunting doesn't care about it either, but I just hold back a sense of hatred in my heart and want to destroy the kingdom of Shu." All the members of the royal family were forced into a desperate situation. Seeing them lingering and miserable, seeing them reaping the consequences and getting the retribution they deserve. Whether it is for the Yun family or the Feng tribe that was once trampled by the Iron Cavalry, the only sin of the Shu kingdom is only blood can cleanse. Nan 11 raised her eyes slightly and landed on Ye Qingchen's beautiful and refined profile. She knew that she must have been working very hard for more than a year, but Ye Qingchen had a strong temper and a clear distinction between love and hate. She never wanted to give in and loved passionately. Willing to give everything for the other person, hating him clearly, and never aggrieved him even half a cent. As for Yunting, putting aside the hatred of his family being ruined, he was actually an extremely gentle person, so after years of loneliness, Ye Qingchen was easily captured by that sunny boy, and fell in love with him to death. The corners of her lips raised slightly, and Nan 11's voice was gentle and light. Every family has its own scriptures that are difficult to recite. This sentence is equally suitable for the royal family. Everyone has a different attitude towards hatred and how to deal with it. As long as you can ask your heart, no need to be ashamed, just be calm and calm. What about you? Ye Qingchen turned his head, raised his eyebrows, and his expression became lighter. I haven't seen you for a long time. How are you doing as the queen? Has anyone forced you to take an imperial wife or something? Actually, I think Sangonglu the courtyard is also quite beautiful. I hug you and I feel very at ease. When you have nothing to do, you can listen to the piano, listen to the beautiful young man reciting a poem, or play chess or make tea. It is simply life. It's a great pleasure, and you can also see how the powerful regent competes for favor. Thinking about it, I feel, well, it doesn't seem realistic. Nan 11 listened to her with great interest, and suddenly turned around as if her neck was stuck. She probably knew what happened, turned her head, and sure enough, she saw Rong Yu and Yunting walking in from outside. Rong Yu, Nan 11's lips curled up, and her voice was particularly gentle. Princess Qingcheng thinks I should enjoy the beauty of being embraced by the 3 palaces and 6th courtyard, and let's see how you compete for favor. What do you think of this proposal? Ye Qingcheng held her forehead, covered her eyes with her slender white palms, and curled up in the chair like a tortoise deceiving herself. Rong Yu said calmly, the distinguished guests have come from afar. Dongling needs to do its best to be a good host, and you two should not go back for the time being. Yunting did not speak, and only looked at Ye Qingchen with a smiling look, wanting to see how she would smooth things over. Ye Qingchen put down her hands and looked at Rong Yu expressionlessly, with a bit of vigilance in her eyes. What do you mean? The regent wants to imprison us. When Xian Yuanyao comes back from investigating the case, you can lead the troops to destroy Shu first. Rong Yu sat down next to Nan 11, his voice was so calm that it seemed like he was deciding something that was very ordinary. What do you think, Your Majesty? Nan 11 turned her head, smiled and kissed his face, and did not mind showing affection in front of others. The regent is mighty, but Princess Qingchen was joking with me. It's not to the point of destroying the country. It's okay to let them stay here for 2 more days. Ye Qingchen looked at the imperial couple without any expression. We kissed each other in front of outsiders, should we consider her feelings? Besides, destroy the country? In fact, this princess does not have much loyalty and love for the so-called family, country, and the world. Ye Qingchen held her chin and told the truth. Even if the regent sent troops to attack immediately, it would not cause any panic for me. Yunting and I are only responsible for Yun Rui's safety. The life and death of others have nothing to do with us. So this threat is not valid. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 592. However, Ye Qingchen underestimated Rong Yu's ruthlessness. Yun Rui has become the crown prince of Shu. Since we want to destroy the country, we must eradicate it. Rong Yu said indifferently, for the sake of his young age, let's keep his life for the time being and bring him to Dongling. Come and read to the prince. If he is obedient in the future, let him live a good life. if he is not obedient. The regent has a lot of people. Ye Qingcheng sighed, and finally resigned. I regret that I should have talked nonsense and made trouble in front of Her Majesty the Queen, let alone encouraged Her Majesty to hug her. There is such a high position as the regent. He is a powerful, capable, and handsome man who is as infatuated as an immortal. His Majesty cannot be attracted by other ordinary people. How can your Majesty seek to embrace everyone for the happiness of everyone? Nan 11 suppressed a smile. Princess Qingcheng is able to bend and stretch, she is truly a man among women. I made your Majesty laugh. Ye Qingcheng was under the eaves and had to lower his head. Everyone in the world has weaknesses, and this princess is no exception. Even a strong and invincible man like the regent still loves your Majesty in his heart. Your Majesty is his 7-inch weakness, and I also have the same weakness. Nan 11 leaned on the brocade couch in silence. The smile on her lips was neither deep nor shallow, just the right amount of teasing. This well-rounded woman can even flatter her so beautifully without being flattering at all. Nan 11 can guarantee that Rongyu will be very happy after hearing these words. You can tell by his expression. The gentle and jade-like Mr. Yun stood aside, his eyes always falling on Ye Qingcheng's face, seeing her pride and frivolity, seeing her giving in, seeing her cunning eyebrows, hearing her words as if she had been smeared with honey, every frown, every smile, every move. It all made him feel warm. There is nothing else to do today. Nan 11 turned to look at Rongyu. Qingcheng and Yunting are distinguished guests after all. They should have the etiquette department hold a banquet to entertain them tonight. Your Majesty, there is no need to be polite. Yunting's voice was gentle and courteous. Qingcheng and I are just hanging out for a while. There is no need to mobilize troops. Others don't know Qingcheng's identity. It's good to stay quietly for a few days. Ye Qingcheng nodded. Yunting is right, there is no need to mobilize troops. Joke. Is Yunting still a subordinate of Juxiao Pavilion? Let the regent entertain his subordinates grandly. Even if Rongyu and Nan 11 didn't say anything, Yunting would probably feel tremendous pressure and fear. So it's not necessary at all. I came out to play just to reminisce about old times, and it wasn't a visit from the king. Why was it so grand? After returning to the kingdom of Shu for more than a year, Ye Qingcheng's temperament became much calmer. Although Nan 11 did not see with her own eyes how the two took revenge and subverted the royal family of the kingdom of Shu after returning, she knew that Ye Qingcheng loved Yunting deeply. You can see how deep her love is by training her nephew to become a prince. In Ye Qingcheng's heart, the power, position, wealth, and splendor are not as good as Yunting. Therefore, it has become her habit to think about Yunting at all times, and Yunrui has become one of her weaknesses. She will never let these two people fall into an awkward situation at any time. Because Yunting was always polite in front of Rongyu, and his small talk was somewhat respectful, the few of them did not stay in the palace for too long. After having lunch in the Dajhan Palace, Nan 11 ordered someone to take Ye Qingcheng and Yunting went to settle down. The world is at peace, and all countries have settled down. Nan 11 leaned in front of the couch, resting her head on Rongyu's shoulder, and raised her hand to caress his handsome cheek. Rongyu. Rongyu lowered his eyes and looked at her. Yes. Love is such a wonderful thing. Her voice was soft, with a bit of sighing. It can't be seen or touched, but it can make the strongest people become gentle, make the weak people strong, and make people feel the sourness and sadness. Pain, happiness, and sweetness are all intertwined, making people reborn from the inside out and becoming unlike themselves. Rongyu was silent for a moment. What about me? You, Nan 11 raised her eyes slightly. What's wrong with you? Rongyu pursed her thin lips slightly. You are still you have never changed. Nan 11 smiled slightly. It's just that in the eyes of others, you may feel deeply. Rongyu's eyebrows relaxed and he hummed softly. The feelings of others are not important, they feel how they want to feel. Your Majesty. Yunyu walked in, knelt down and reported, Miss Jia from Prince Jing's mansion wishes to see you. Rong Yu frowned slightly. Jia's marriage to the Prime Minister's legitimate son has come to an end. I'm probably here to thank you today. Nan 11 stretched out her hand to smooth his eyebrows. Don't frown all the time, or you'll age quickly. Rong Yu grabbed her hand and kissed it. Don't be too tired. Nan 11 laughed. I just chatted with Jia for a while, how could I be tired? Compared with him who is busy with government affairs all day long, her life is not too comfortable. Nan 11 got up and walked out. Rong Yu sat on the couch and was silent for a moment. Thinking of what Nan 11 had just said, he got up and walked to the bronze mirror, carefully looking at his face in the mirror. After looking at it for a while, he made sure that there were no obvious wrinkles, and then he breathed a sigh of relief. The author has something to say. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and it is difficult to please everyone. If you like this article, follow it, and be happy to ship the CP. If you don't like the setting in the article, abandon the book and find someone you like. I don't ask you to read it, and I don't owe you anything. Can some people not disgust me? The most basic qualities of being a human being should be there. Of course, if you don't treat yourself as a human being, then just ignore what I said. Some people should not stand on the moral high ground and persuade me to be magnanimous. Ask yourself if you can do it without fighting back or scolding back when someone hits you. The author accepts all kinds of opinions, but some people with no quality speak too harshly. If you don't like it, you still insist on reading it, and then scold me after reading it. Are you being cheap? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 593. Xianyuanjia was indeed here to express her gratitude. Her marriage with Lu Konglin was already settled, and the auspicious date was set for next month. In addition to her, Lu Fangfei, a girl from the Lu family, was also here. The two were not only good friends, but also future sisters-in-law, and their friendship was extraordinary. The two of them exchanged greetings and were just given a seat when they saw Rong Yu coming out of the inner hall. The two women hurriedly stood up and saluted again. No need to be polite. Rong Yu's voice was indifferent, and he turned to look at Nan 11, I'll go to the Kinzen hall first. Nan 11 nodded. Rong Yu walked out. Lu Fangfei subconsciously raised her eyes to look at his back, and the throbbing in her heart lingered again, sour and bitter, and a trace of absent-mindedness flashed across her eyes. After a moment, she slowly closed her eyes. Can't dream of it? Even though this noble man like a white crane in the sky is hard to find in the world, she can only look at him from the back and cannot dream of him, otherwise she would be putting herself in an unjust position. However, she suppressed her emotions, but could not stop the throbbing in her heart. She clenched her hands quietly to restrain her improper thoughts. The two sat down on the chairs again, but Lu Fangfei, whose mind had drifted away, could no longer hear what the queen and Xianyuanjia talked about. Her mind was full of that cold and noble man, whose demeanor and majesty were more handsome than any son of aristocratic family in Dongling Imperial City, and whose pressure was convincing. How could there be such a man in the world? What kind of water and soil could raise such a perfect man? Miss Lu is 28 this year, right? Nan 11's calm voice interrupted Lu Fangfei's thoughts. Do you have a crush on someone? Lu Fangfei felt cold all over and stood up subconsciously. Report to His Majesty. Don't be nervous. Nan 11 smiled faintly, his eyes fell on her slightly pale face, and his voice was a bit careless and clear. Sit down and talk. Lu Fangfei thanked him and sat down slowly. A layer of fine cold sweat had already appeared under her clothes. She clenched her hands on her knees into fists, then slowly loosened them. The sweat on her palms quietly rubbed off on her clothes. Then she calmed down and said, Your Majesty, I don't have anyone I like at the moment. Nan 11 hummed, Don't worry too much about marriage. It would be great if you can find someone you like. If you can't find someone you like, choose a man with a similar family background, outstanding character and reliability as your husband. Such a man knows responsibility and knows how to cherish his wife. Only when the couple is harmonious can the marriage last long. Lu Fangfei nodded and agreed. Her heart was in a mess. She felt that she couldn't stay here any longer, because every time she inadvertently thought of that impressive back, she would lose her mind for a moment. What if Her Majesty saw something? Your Majesty is busy with government affairs. Your Majesty, and I dare not bother you for too long. Xian Yuanjia stood up and knelt down to salute. Can your servant take his leave first and come to pay respects to your Majesty another day? Lu Fangfei stood up as if relieved. Nan 11 smiled faintly. Go and do it if you have something to do. Thank you, your Majesty. The two women bowed their heads and performed a standard farewell ceremony before turning around and walking out. As they walked out of the Dajhan Palace, a breeze blew past them, and the cold sweat on their bodies was blown away by the wind. Lu Fangfei couldn't help shivering. Fangfei, when they walked to a place where no one could hear, Xian Yuanjia spoke in a low voice, "What's wrong with you today? You look absent-minded. What happened?" Lu Fangfei lowered her eyebrows and walked on the way out of the palace. Her steps were strictly in accordance with the standard lotus steps cultivated by the noble ladies of the aristocratic families. Her figure was slender and dignified, and she looked completely like a lady from an aristocratic family. But inside, she had already been in a mess. Jia Lu Fangfei's voice was low, with a subtle tremor. I may have made a mistake." "Made a mistake?" Xian Yuanjia was slightly startled, and turned to look at her in surprise. "What did you do wrong?" "I may have fallen in love with someone I shouldn't." Like Lu Fangfei bit her lip. "This is wrong, but I can't control it." Xian Yuanjia stopped in shock. "Fangfei? Someone you shouldn't like?" Xian Yuanjia almost guessed who she was talking about at once. Her heart sank, and her face changed instantly. "I think I'd better not enter the palace unless your Majesty summons me in the future." Lu Fangfei smiled bitterly. "I'm afraid I don't have such strong self-control. If I do something I shouldn't do or say something I shouldn't say, I'm afraid I can't bear the consequences." Xian Yuanjia looked at her in a daze. "When did you?" "It has nothing to do with time, and it has nothing to do with the number of times we meet." Lu Fangfei took a deep breath, lowered her eyebrows and smiled bitterly. "Today I understand what it means to love without knowing where it comes from, and it goes deep. Xian Yuanjia subconsciously turned his head and looked around, then pulled Lu Fangfei out, whispering as he walked, "Fangfei, you must not let anyone people know that once I leave this palace, I will completely forget about him. You should just pretend that you have never been to the palace and have never seen him. If it really doesn't work, just like what Her Majesty the Queen said, quickly find a man of equal status and reliable character to marry. Maybe over time, you will slowly stop thinking about him." Lu Fangfei glanced at her. "Do you also think that I am being rebellious?" "It's not rebellious, but it shouldn't happen." Xian Yuanjia shook his head. "Anyway, you can't think about it anymore, it's very dangerous." Lu Fangfei was silent for a moment, and nodded gently. "I know that I can't put the Lu family on the charcoal fire, so don't worry, I won't have any restless thoughts." Xian Yuanjia heaved a sigh of relief, then frowned. "A man like the regent, I'm afraid there will be more women like you in the future. I just hope there will be fewer banquets in the palace in the future." Lu Fangfei didn't say anything else, and the two left the palace together. Nan 11, who was sitting in the Dajhan palace, reached out and picked up the tea at hand, slightly narrowed her eyes, and thought of the girl's absent-minded expression just now, and raised the corners of her lips and sipped the tea slowly. "Your Majesty, Yin, you brought a plate of freshly baked osmanthus cake to Nan 11, Miss Lu seems to be a little out of shape." Nan 11 hummed. It's true that she lost her composure. Not only did she lose her composure, I'm afraid she also had more thoughts. Yin Yu stood aside and spoke thoughtfully, "My prince is of noble status and natural bearing, just like the exiled immortal described in the book. It is normal for a woman to be attracted to him, but even if she is attracted, she must not lose sight of her own status and have unrealistic thoughts." Nan 11 laughed when she heard this and looked up at her with interest. "Is your prince really that good?" "That's right," Yin Yu nodded, "the best in the world, no one can compare to him." Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 594. Nan 11 laughed. From the first time she met Yunyu, Rong Yu's status in this girl's heart has always been as noble and unattainable as a god, and it has never changed. But this is indeed the case. You can't find another man like Rong Yu in heaven or on earth. Just thinking about Lu Fangfei's reaction just now, Nan 11 smiled slightly and couldn't help but think that it seemed distressing for her husband to be too good. With a slight thought in her mind, Nan 11 raised her head and looked at Yunyu. "Go and call Princess Linjia over." "Yes." Silver Moon turned around and walked out. Nan 11 took a sip of tea in silence, turned to look out the window, and said nothing for a long time. "Your Majesty." Linjia followed Yunyu in and saluted according to Dongling etiquette. "Are you looking for me?" After coming to Dongling for a while, Linjia has become accustomed to Nan 11's status here, and strictly follows the palace rules and etiquette. She is not a proud and arrogant person, not to mention that the regent has a cold temperament and is not easy to get close to. Even if he is really an elder with a strong blood relationship, among the royal family, the etiquette of respect and inferiority cannot be ignored at all. Moreover, she was already familiar with court etiquette, and Linjia was no stranger to it. Nan 11 looked away and waved to her, "Come here." Linjia stepped forward with a slight smile on his lips, "Your Majesty." "Sit down." Nan 11 pointed to the seat next to her. "Jia, I want to tell you about your marriage." Linjia was stunned. "You don't have to worry about his character, nor do you have to worry about him bullying you." Nan 11 smiled gently, "There is nothing to say about this man's appearance. He is handsome and outstanding, and his character is nothing to criticize. He is filial to his mother and has a humble nature. He behaves in a restrained and low-key manner and does not cause trouble. He should be a responsible man." Linjia was silent for a moment. "Your Majesty, I am not in a hurry." "I know you are not in a hurry." Nan 11 sighed, "but there are too few good men. If you are not in a hurry, what if someone else gets there first?" Linjia lowered his head and twisted the handkerchief unconsciously with his hands. "Besides, I didn't force you to agree." Nan 11 said in a gentle tone. "He is a royal heir, the concubine of the Prince of Wei who was just exiled a few days ago. Now that the Prince of Wei has lost his master, that means you and him. If it works, you don't need to look at anyone's face in the future, only a gentle and kind mother-in-law. You just need to get along well with her." "The concubine of the Prince of Wei?" Linjia's heart was moved, thinking of the handsome young man she had met before. She raised her eyes and looked at Nan 11. "Your Majesty is talking about the Mr. Chen who is following the regent?" Nan 11 nodded and chuckled, "That's him." Linjia was silent, her red lips pursed slightly. "Maybe he doesn't like me." "This tone." Nan 11 raised her lips and smiled. "He wouldn't dare to do it while your uncle is here." Linjia thought to herself that she didn't want to be a girl who bullied her into marriage because of her status. The most beautiful marriage was when two people were in love, but that young man was indeed a rare and handsome man. Moreover, even though his entire family was exiled from Prince Wei's palace, he was able to remain unscathed, which showed that the regent valued him. Linjia knew that this great uncle regent was a person that ordinary people could not see. The person who could allow him to be open-minded about the law and keep him around for experience would definitely have a good character and ability, and his future career would not be the same. It will be bright. Linjia hesitated for a long time, but she was actually moved. The only concern was that her daughter's family was still a bit reserved. She was worried that Xian Yuanchen wouldn't like her. If she really married him based on this relationship, he would be in trouble in the future. What to do if you are unhappy? Linjia, who had been married once, knew very well the feeling of being unable to control herself, and hated being manipulated. She didn't want to be the one who forced others. Let's go. Nan 11 stood up, follow me to the Kinzan palace and reward the regent for his hard work. Yunyu understood the idea and went to the small kitchen in person to fill up some freshly brewed pear juice, put it in a clean food box, and followed Nan 11 to the Kinzan hall. Discussions with ministers usually take place after court in the morning. If there is nothing important in the afternoon, most of the time in the Kinzan palace will be spent with Rongyu reviewing memorials, with Xiejin and Xian Yuanchen waiting on the side, handing over memorials and grinding them. Occasionally answering questions raised by the regent. It seems like a leisurely time, but in fact, you have to do enough homework every day in the Kinzan palace, and you have to be more careful when answering questions, and think carefully before answering. Because the regent's questions were never made on a whim, and a bad answer, the indifferent look in his eyes could make people feel cold from head to toe. Xiejin went on a business trip, and only Xian Yuanchen was left by Rongyu's side. The palm eunuch and several other servants who served tea were usually like shadows and would not speak at all unless ordered. Therefore, Xian Yuanchen was under greater pressure, and almost every day. Fortunately, Rongyu did not deliberately put pressure on him. After Xiejin left, Xian Yuanchen's task became much easier, but the psychological pressure was relatively high. When staying in the Kinzan palace with the Prince Regent, the air is mostly quiet, and today is no exception. Xian Yuanchen organized the papers approved by Rongyu and gave them to the chamberlain to send to the 6 departments. There was a closed bamboo bucket on the imperial desk, which contained information sent from time to time from outside the palace, although Xian Yuanchen did not know what the information was. Who handed it in, but he knew most of the information. Because he needed to read it to the Prince Regent. Every piece of information means a different degree of secret. The trends of Dongling's entire world are in this bamboo bucket. This is also one of Xian Yuanchen's pressures. Because he knows too many secrets, he is afraid that if he makes a wrong step, he will be silenced by the regent. Pick up a piece of information from the bamboo bucket and unfold it. Xian Yuanchen frowned slightly. Susi has already sent people to track down the whereabouts of the 9th prince, Your Majesty. This. Don't pay attention. Rongyu glanced at the note in his hand. Xian Yuanchen, do you have a crush on someone? Ah. Xian Yuanchen was stunned and replied subconsciously, no. Well, Rongyu said nothing and gestured, continue. Xian Yuanchen lowered his eyes and responded, reaching out to take out another sealed piece of information from the bamboo bucket. He opened it and was about to read it, but heard the guards outside saluting, greetings to Her Majesty the Queen. Rongyu raised his eyes, and a touch of unexpected tenderness flashed across his eyes. Xian Yuanchen had put the information back, straightened his robes, turned around and knelt down to welcome the emperor. Other eunuchs in the Kinzan palace also knelt down to welcome him. Chu Hongii, who accompanied the emperor, stayed outside the palace waiting, and Her Majesty walked in with Yin Yu. Linjia followed her on the left, lowering her eyebrows and eyes, with proper etiquette. Rongyu smiled slightly, why is Your Majesty here? I came to see the regent. Nan 11 smiled gently, by the way, I brought freshly boiled snow pear juice to reward the hard-working regent and Mr. Chen. As he spoke, his eyes turned slightly, stand up. Xian Yuanchen thanked him, stood up, stepped back, and stood with his head bowed. Jia, pour a glass of pear juice for the regent and Mr. Chen. Yes. Rongyu raised his eyebrows slightly, and instantly understood Nan 11's intention. Author's words. Regarding updates, it is usually 4,000, and occasionally more. I have been busy with house affairs these 2 days, so the updates are not stable. I will write when I am free. I took a day off yesterday, so I updated 1 chapter. If I take a day off in the future, I will say it here so that the babies don't wait in vain. In addition, all the main plots are now coming to an end. All the CPS that have appeared will be written about, and no more CPS will be added. If you like to read Ajin and Yao Yao, I will write about them. If you don't like this pair, please turn the page automatically and stop saying bad things. I will not tolerate malicious attacks. People with no quality, please stay away from my book review area. Window. Taboola equals window. Taboola. Taboola.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, Taboola below article feed, placement, below article feed, target. Type, mix. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 595. Lin Jie stepped forward and took the cup, poured 2 cups of pear juice, presented 1 cup to the Prince Regent, and turned around and handed the other cup to Xian Yuan Chen. Master Chen, please. Rong Yu held the cup, looked into Nan 11's eyes, raised the corners of his lips slightly, held her hand and walked towards Nuan Pavilion. Xian Yuan Chen raised his eyes slightly, and his eyes fell on the face of the beautiful and delicate girl in front of him. His eyes quickly dropped, he reached out to take the cup, and said with a slight restraint, "Thank you, girl." Lin Jie smiled solemnly, "Young Master Chen, you don't need to be polite." Xian Yuan Chen's young mind had never been in such close contact with a woman. At this moment, when he saw a bright and sunny girl standing in front of him with a bright smile and a slightly red face, he couldn't help but take a step back. Lin Jie was a little scared at first, but she found that this man seemed to be more reserved than she was, and coughed lightly, "My name is Lin Jie, from Dazhu." Xian Yuan Chen looked at her in surprise, then turned around as if thinking of something, only to see that Her Majesty the Queen and the Prince Regent had gone to the cubicle and were talking in a low voice, paying no attention to their intentions. Xian Yuan Chen had a guess in his mind, pursed his lips, lowered his eyebrows and said, I am Xian Yuan Chen." Lin Jie was silent for a moment and asked in a low voice, "Does Mr. Chen have someone in mind?" Xian Yuan Chen was nervous for a moment. Thinking that the regent had asked him this question just now, his heart became clearer and he slowly shook his head, "Not yet. I heard that Mr. Chen has a mother, but no one is taking care of him right now." Lin Jie stared at her toes, "I live in the palace and have nothing to do, but I am willing to take care of his wife for Mr. Chen." "I don't know that Mr. Chen." This. Xian Yuan Chen's palms were wet with sweat and he quietly rubbed them on his clothes. His voice became lower and lower, "I'm just afraid that I have wronged Miss Lin." Lin Jie raised her eyes to look at him and saw that he was really embarrassed, so she couldn't help but laugh. "Master Chen, are you afraid of me? Why do you keep your head down when talking?" Xian Yuan Chen's face turned red. No. He just didn't expect that the Kinzen Hall would actually become the place where Her Majesty the Queen would give him a red line, and the regent was also there. He was too nervous and didn't know how to deal with it for a while. Lin Jie looked at him silently. Xian Yuan Chen became more and more nervous, his cheeks as red as cooked shrimps. "Miss Lin is very, very beautiful, Lin Jie chuckled. Xian Yuan Chen was so stunned by his laughter that he couldn't say anything. "Except for the good-looking face, I have nothing else to offer." Lin Jie smiled and said softly, "If His Majesty proposes marriage to us, will you agree?" Xian Yuan Chen's expression changed slightly, and he said solemnly, "The will cannot be violated." "The decree has not been issued yet." Lin Jie gently interrupted him, "If you are not willing, there will be no decree." Hearing this, Xian Yuan Chen couldn't help but look at her deeply. This is a kind-hearted girl, gentle but not forceful, who knows how to take care of other people's emotions and respect other people's ideas. Xian Yuan Chen glanced in the direction of Nuange, quickly looked away, and nodded slowly, as long as Miss Lin doesn't mind my low status, I am willing. Lin Jia felt slightly relieved, but felt a little embarrassed when he agreed. Does this look like a forced marriage? How could it be? A smile appeared on Xian Yuan Chen's lips, with a bit of restraint. Miss Lin, don't think too much. If you are unwilling, I will say it directly. Lin Jia hummed, then, Mr. Chen, please go to work first, I won't disturb you anymore. Saying that he is blessed, he turned around and walked out. At first, his pace was calm, but then he walked faster and faster, as if he wanted to escape for his life. Xian Yuan Chen stared at her back and couldn't help but blink, feeling that this girl seemed a little cute. It seems like it's done in the cubicle. Nan 11 quietly watched the situation outside, her voice lowered a lot. Did I succeed again as a matchmaker? Rong Yu reached out and turned her face, biting her ear. Are you addicted to being a matchmaker? Nan 11 smiled happily. If you can't be a queen in the future, you can change your career to be a matchmaker. Rong Yu's expression paused slightly. If I really wait for that day, I'm afraid I won't have this opportunity. What? Nan 11 tilted her head to look at him. Are you planning to imprison me? Rong Yu pecked her lips. Well, I will imprison you in Kangyun Mountain. Day and night, month and year, you can only see me, and you are no longer allowed to pay attention to anyone else. Presumptuous Nan 11 reached out and pinched his face. Do you want to rebel? Rong Yu chuckled. Your Majesty, do you want to punish me? Conspiracy and rebellion are crimes that cannot be pardoned. Nan 11 stood up and walked out. Think carefully about how to offset the merits. Rong Yu was reluctant to separate from her, and said warmly, now that you are here, why don't you take a look at these excerpts? I'm afraid it will affect your image in front of the ministers. Nan 11 shook her head and refused, walked outside, and said to Xian Yuan Chen, who was about to salute, go to the Dajhan Palace tonight for dinner and then go back. Xian Yuan Chen bowed and accepted the order. Yes. Nan 11 quickly returned to the palace. Rong Yu watched her leave with some reluctance. After a moment, he turned back to the royal desk and sat down. The couple that Nan 11 had arranged to marry or matched flashed through his mind. Xian Yuan Qi and Chu Hong Ai. Lu Konglin and Xian Yuan Xia. Silver Moon and Qing Yang. Now there are Xian Yuan Chen and Lin Xia. It seems like she really has the potential to become a matchmaker. Rong Yu shook his head, feeling tender in his heart. Spring is the most suitable season for weddings. In March, the legitimate son of Prime Minister Lu's family got married. The wedding was a lively one. All the colleagues in the court went to congratulate them. Xian Yuan Chen and Xian Yuan Hua came together to send congratulatory gifts and drank the wedding wine. In April, the queen granted a marriage, and Xian Yuan Chen married the queen's sister, Princess Lin Xia, which was also very lively. The title of princess was personally conferred by the queen, representing the favor of the emperor. Xian Yuan Chen's career was smooth, and he was valued by the regent. Now he married the queen's sister, which was a double harvest in love and career, which really made many nobles in the imperial capital envious. In May, Nan 11 held a simple wedding ceremony for Qing Yang and Yunyu in the palace, and the two officially became husband and wife. 3 consecutive months of joy made people feel comfortable. Xiejin and Xian Yuan Yao, who were far away in Shangning, also investigated the case surprisingly smoothly. It was so smooth that Xian Yuan Yao and Xiejin felt surprised. Originally, they used the beauty trap just to make Yun Dai, the daughter of the Yun family, jealous, and then caused a storm. The bigger the storm, the more beneficial it was for them to fish in troubled waters. But she didn't expect that she would get a shocking secret out of Mr. Ye. Ye Yun was actually the illegitimate son of the Yun family. No wonder the head of the Yun family refused to allow him to be with his daughter. How could blood-related siblings get married? What was even more surprising was that Ye Yun's legs were poisoned by Yun Yi, the head of the Yun family. This result was beyond the expectations of Xie Jin and Xian Yuanyao. What surprised them even more was the unknown relationship between Su Si, the Minister of Revenue in the court, and the Yun family. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 596. As the truth was investigated in depth, Xie Jin found that the Yun family was in a mess, which really fulfilled the saying 7 melons on 1 vine, and he reaped a lot of rewards. Before coming to Shangning, he only knew that Su Si's brother-in-law was the son-in-law of Yun Teng, the old patriarch of the Yun family, and the brother-in-law of the current patriarch Yun Yi. The Su family and the Yun family should have a common interest relationship, or it can be said that the Yun family was able to grow so fast under the protection of Su Si. After all, it is easy to get things done with someone in the court. However, the facts were beyond their expectations. Su Si turned out to be the child husband of the Yun family, that is, the person Su Si was supposed to marry was not his current wife, but Yun Xiang, the daughter of the Yun family, but for some reason, it was probably because the daughter of the Yun family fell in love with Mrs. Su's brother, so Su Si got rid of the identity of the child husband and married the current Mrs. Su. But although he could not be a child-raising husband, Su Si could not break away from the relationship with the Yun family. He was always controlled by the Yun family. In recent years, he climbed up step by step in the court and used his power to provide many conveniences for the Yun family. As Su Si climbed higher and higher in the court, the power of the Yun family also grew larger and larger, gradually becoming the veritable uncrowned king in Shangning. During the years when the emperor was in power, the Yun family took too many benefits and expanded their appetite. In the past few years, they even recruited soldiers and set up a private horse farm in Shangning, becoming a local overlord. Now that the empress has ascended the throne and the regent is in power, the Yun family wants to continue to use Su Si's identity to satisfy their own desires, and they don't know how to restrain themselves, which attracted the attention of the regent. As for Ye Yun, he was actually the product of Yun Yi and Yun Xiang's one-night stand when they were young, but Yun Xiang later married Yin Chang Hui, the younger brother of Su Furen Yin, and Yun Yi also married the daughter of a wealthy family. In order to avoid family scandals, the Yun family asked the wet nurse to secretly take the child away. After Yun Yi got married, Yun Dai and Ye Yun became half-siblings. After hearing the truth, Xian Yuanyao was shocked for a long time. It's too messy, isn't it? Xie Jin held the teacup and admired the little leopard's rare dumbfounded expression for a while. I think it's messy enough. Xian Yuanyao frowned, digesting it for a long time but still a little confused. Isn't Su Si the head of the Su family? The Su family has existed among the powerful families in Dongling for 100 years and is one of the 4 major families. Su Si was born as the eldest son of the Su family. How could he be the child husband of the Yun family? Isn't this wrong? What went wrong? There are always absurdities in the world, Xie Jin said calmly. I'm afraid this Su Si is not the real Su family's legitimate son. Xian Yuanyao was surprised. You mean, he is a fake? Xie Jin nodded. If you want to check his life experience, you have to spend extra effort, but I think the real Su family's legitimate son should have died decades ago, otherwise all this is unreasonable. As for whether he died 20 or 30 years ago, it would be difficult to dig it out without a little effort. After all, it has been sealed for too long, so long that the people who knew about it at the time may have been silenced. Xian Yuanyao frowned. This involves decades ago, when we were not born yet. He really didn't expect that the Shangning Yun family was so deep. Xie Jin raised the corner of his lips slightly. I thought you would be more interested in Ye Yun's life experience. Ye Yun's life experience. Xian Yuanyao frowned, a look of disgust flashed across his face. The Yun family is full of corrupt personal ethics, a place that harbors filth and dirt, and is simply the scum of the world. Xiejin leaned lazily on the couch, one leg across Xian Yuanyao's knee, and took advantage of him unscrupulously. Although I don't seem to be qualified to judge other people's behavior now, but brothers and sisters who do such things are indeed corrupt personal ethics, no different from animals. Xian Yuanyao was stunned, looking at him silently, and didn't speak for a long time. Ye Yun's leg disease is not congenital, but was poisoned by Yun Yi. In fact, Yun Yi may want to kill him because Ye Yun's existence is the biggest stain and evidence of his life. Xiejin said in a faint voice, unfortunately, man proposes, God disposes. Ye Yun has a powerful backer behind him. The Yun family can't kill him, and they haven't found out who is behind Ye Yun yet. Xian Yuanyao thought, the person behind Ye Yun. Yao Yao can guess. Xian Yuanyao suddenly raised his eyes, with surprise in his eyes, is it you? Xiejin shook his head, to be honest, he and I are on the same side, but I didn't know this person until I came to Shangning. Don't know? Xian Yuanyao looked at him for a moment, then stood up suddenly, the one arranged by the master. Yao Yao, why are you so excited? Xiejin slowly retracted his legs, held his forehead and sighed. So I came to a conclusion that the master should have known all the actions of the Shangning Yun family, and the relationship between Su Si and the Yun family should have been clear in his mind. Xian Yuanyao's expression was calm, and he was silent for a long time before slowly sitting back. So when we finish investigating the case and go back, if there are any omissions, the master will definitely think that we are not doing a good job or are lazy and slacking. You can think about it in a positive way. Xiejin laughed. This time we came out to investigate the case. In fact, it is the master's opportunity to give us a chance to accumulate political achievements. No matter what the final result is, the fate of the Yun family and the Su family is already determined. If we do a better job, we will naturally be rewarded when we go back. If we don't do a good job, we will definitely be punished. Xian Yuanyao's expression was really complicated. He stared at Xiejin for a long time. He finally couldn't help but mutter, do you think the master is too deep and cunning? He hid it so deeply. It is considered disrespectful to criticize the king behind his back. Xiejin raised his eyebrows. If the master knew about this, Yao Yao, you dash. You just heard it wrong. Xian Yuanyao's face was serious, and he said seriously, I am praising the master for his wisdom and wisdom. Xiejin couldn't help but chuckle, do you think that I am young and my hearing is bad? Xian Yuanyao glared at him. Yao Yao, you can coax me. Xiejin's voice was a little lower, with a bit of bewitching meaning, if you coax me, I won't complain to the master. Xian Yuanyao looked at him unhappily, when are you still here with wild thoughts? Hurry up and get up to work. As he said, he got up first and walked out. Yao Yao, Xiejin called him, why are you in such a hurry? It's daytime now, it's not convenient to move, let's go at night. Xian Yuanyao paused and turned to look at him. Xiejin's smile deepened, I won't complain, don't worry. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 597. Xian Yuanyao was certainly not afraid of him complaining, so he sat back in his original position in silence. After a long time, he said, I roughly know why the Lord asked me to come with you. Why? Because it may be necessary to mobilize troops. Xian Yuanyao's handsome eyebrows gradually calmed down. Xiling is 60 miles away from here. The city defense commander there was once a subordinate of my father. Because he performed outstandingly in the army and his ancestral home was Xiling, my father reported to the emperor and asked him to go to Xiling to be the commander. If you want to completely overthrow the Yun family, you should indeed be prepared to prevent the dog from jumping off the wall. Xiejin pondered for a moment, but it should be unnecessary to mobilize troops from Xiling. Xian Yuanyao said, I said it is possible. Xiejin paused and nodded slowly, well, Yao Yao is right. Xian Yuan Yao. Xiejin looked at Xian Yuan Yao with burning eyes, his voice was elegant and pleasant. After 2 months of investigation, we have mastered most of the details of the Yun family. Now we just need to get solid evidence, and we will be successful, putting aside the corruption of the private morality of the Yun family, just the collusion between officials and businessmen, the violation of the court's laws and regulations to recruit soldiers and horses privately, the private establishment of horse farms, and the huge corruption. Just a few random charges are enough to make the 9 clans of the Yun family be executed, without a single one left. Xian Yuanyao frowned, thinking, if you want to talk about business, just talk about business, why are you staring at me? There is no evidence on his face. However, he had learned Xiejin's shamelessness in the past 2 months and was used to it. He only said, investigating the case is easy, but getting evidence is difficult. It was not easy to investigate the case. After all, the Yun family was big and powerful. The whole Shangning was under the Yun family's influence. Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao did not show up at all to investigate the case. Xiejin used his subordinates to investigate, and they were all experts. There were many things that were extracted from Yayun. Of course, Yayun's words were not so easy to extract. Although he had someone protecting him behind him, Yayun did not know Xiejin and Xian Yuanyao, nor did he know those people under Xiejin. He would not cooperate so well to reveal the scars on his body to others. It was the female doctor sent by Xiejin who used a special method to pry open Yayun's mouth and learn the secret of this shocking scandal. Xiejin sent people to perform the beauty trap to deal with Yun Dai, but he did not expect such an unexpected gain. Fortunately, no matter what method is used, the privacy of the Yun family has been investigated, but it is difficult to get the evidence, because the Yun family is heavily guarded and ordinary people can't get in. Even the masters under Xiejin can't get all the evidence smoothly in a short time. Once the head of the Yun family is alarmed, it means that they will kill us at all costs. Xiejin held his chin, so we must think of a foolproof method. I'm afraid there is no foolproof method, Xian Yuanyao said. The Yun family's house is very large, with 9 bends and 18 turns inside, covering a vast area, and the defense is as strong as a copper wall. The underground secret room is even more full of traps. If we are not careful, we are afraid that we will die without a complete body. And those fatal evidences can never be placed in a place where people can easily get them. If they want to get the evidence, they must go by themselves. The masters under their command can check the clues, but they can't risk losing their lives. Xian Yuanyao and Xiejin are the ones who can make the decision. They go in person, can adapt to the situation, change strategies at any time, and retreat at any time when encountering dangerous situations. If we send our subordinates to do the mission, the people who follow orders will ignore the danger in most cases to complete the mission. If they encounter dangerous situations, they are likely to lose their lives. If it were in the past, Xiejin probably wouldn't care too much about these things. The reason why he kept his subordinates was to wait for orders, and it was normal for them to die in accidents. However, the lesson in the imperial study was so profound that he would subconsciously be more cautious in his actions now. We should first find a way to get the topographic map of the Yun family. Xian Yuanyao began to use his thinking on leading troops and deploying formations on the battlefield. There is also a map of the mechanism in the underground secret room, and the distribution of the Yun family's masters. The most important thing is that before we act, we need to arrange enough masters to respond outside. At this point, he frowned slightly. Don't forget that the master does not allow us to take risks, so we must try our best to get out of the situation safely. Author's words. This chapter is a bit short, and I will make up a long chapter tomorrow. Good night. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 598. Xiejin said nothing, holding his chin, and just looked at him quietly, with tenderness in his eyes and sparks flying everywhere. Xian Yuanyao was discussing countermeasures seriously, with a focused expression, and closed his eyes in deep thought. Unexpectedly, the fox was teasing him with his eyes. However, no matter how slow he was, he could not block the scorching gaze on the other side. Raising his head, Xian Yuanyao looked slightly annoyed. "Xiejin, I'm talking about business with you, can you be a little more serious?" "I am very serious most of the time." Xiejin raised the corners of his lips slightly, "but there is no one else around now. If I continue to be so serious, won't you find it too boring?" Xian Yuanyao was about to say no, but saw Xiejin curling his fingers. "Yao Yao, come here." Calling the puppy. "Yao Yao." Xian Yuanyao's expression became extremely cold, full of warning. "Have you forgotten what you promised me before?" Xiejin raised his eyebrows slightly. "What are you talking about?" "Xian Yuanyao." "Oh." Xiejin remembered. "Do I listen to you in everything?" Xian Yuanyao's expression was subtle. When these words came out of his mouth, they seemed to be nothing. But when Xiejin mentioned them again, he always felt a strange feeling, indescribably weird. "Well, I'll listen to you in everything." Xiejin's voice was lazy, with a somewhat strange meaning. "What does Yao Yao want from me?" Xian Yuanyao frowned. "Promise yourself." Xian Yuanyao. "As long as Yao Yao wants, I'll wash it off and wait." Xian Yuanyao's handsome face turned green, and he looked at the guy in front of him with a blank smile, and said coldly, "Have you said enough? Can you speak seriously when talking about business?" Xiejin smiled slightly. "Yao Yao is angry." Xian Yuanyao said nothing. Xiejin was silent for a moment and nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll go to work." After saying that, he stood up and walked out. Xian Yuanyao stared at his back. "What are you doing?" "Work." Xiejin turned to look at him. "It's okay, you wait here, I'll go by myself." Xian Yuanyao said with a cold face, "Didn't you say you would go at night?" "I changed my mind." Xiejin said in a leisurely tone. "You can do other things at night, and you can't waste time during the day." Xian Yuanyao suddenly didn't know what to say. Xiejin waved his hand, turned around and left. When Xian Yuanyao saw that he was really going, he felt uneasy, so he slowly followed behind him. After walking a few steps, he found that Xiejin really had the attitude of never looking back, so he unknowingly quickened his pace and followed him. "What are you going to do?" "The reason why the Yun family dares to be so arrogant is because they have raised many capable people." Xiejin said. "There are death warriors, machine masters, poison masters, and a snake player. Those terrifying poison scorpions are his sharp weapons. If other ministers in the court investigate the Yun family's case this time, it is no exaggeration to say that one of them will be killed, and even the corpses of the capital may not be left." Xian Yuanyao was shocked when he heard this. What do the Yun family want to do? Are they really going to rebel? Rebellion is not enough, they are not that capable. Xiejin sneered, but they do have the ambition to dominate one side. It is best to make the imperial court fearful, to act unscrupulously outside the law, so that everyone in the world can know how powerful the Yun family is. The most important thing is that Shangning is far away from the capital, and the Yun family covers the sky with one hand. As long as they don't do anything outrageous and ordinary people don't dare to provoke it, it will be difficult for the news to reach the imperial city. If there are people intercepting news from outside the court, it is not difficult to deceive Shengting. At least during the years when the Supreme Emperor was in power, the news about Shangning had been covered up. No minister had ever noticed the situation here, and of course, no one had impeached him. When the king sits in the court, most of the news about the world comes from his ministers. If the ministers don't report it, they will never know the truth buried under the overwhelming power. The Yun family's case is very involved, we have to take it step by step. Xiejin looked calm. Let's start with the Yin family. Xian Yuanyao couldn't keep up with his thoughts. so he subconsciously asked, Yin family. Yes, Yao Yao won't forget it, right? Xiejin stopped and turned to look at him. Yongxiang abandoned Su Ce in order to marry Yin Changhui. Do you know why she married Yin Changhui? Isn't it a transfer of affection? Yao Yao is so simple. Xiejin raised his lips. How can the marriage of children in these big families be so simple? Xian Yuan Yao secretly thought, it is indeed not simple. Brothers and sisters can do whatever they want, what else can't they do? The Yin family controls the lifeblood of all the salt and iron east of Shangning, and is extremely wealthy. Otherwise, why do you think the Yun family can recruit soldiers and set up private horse farms, but no one dares to expose him? Xiejin turned and walked out of the gate. Because his corruption did not affect the interests of the people. People have always resisted only when they were severely oppressed, because they understand the principle that people do not fight against officials. As long as their lives can go on, no one will choose to follow Yun home is the enemy. Most of the officials around Shangning who could be bribed were bribed, and most of the officials who could not be bribed could not achieve anything. From top to bottom, they were either in the same boat, or they did not have the confidence to be hostile to them. This is the foundation for the Yun family to settle down and live. The Yun family is actually smart, Xiejin said calmly. They expanded their power by abusing their power for personal gain, operating illegally, colluding with officials and businessmen, and deceiving their superiors and subordinates. They were not stupid enough to touch the people, which is why they have been safe all these years. After leaving the door, Xiejin said nothing more. It was impossible for them to go to the dragon's den and tiger's lair in broad daylight, so they went to a medicine shop in the city first. Although Xian Yuanyao was puzzled, he just watched silently and did not ask much. Xiejin walked to a larger medicine shop, bought 2 medicinal materials, paid the silver, turned around and went out, and went around to a narrow alley. There is a medicine shop in a remote place in this alley, and even the name of the medicine shop is weird, called Huanquan Hell. Xian Yuanyao followed Xiejin the whole time and watched him walking quietly. The lobby of the medicine shop was not spacious, much smaller than the general medicine hall, and there were no ordinary medicinal materials here, and the medicinal materials here were difficult to buy outside. The shopkeeper was a young boy who looked about 14 or 15 years old. When he saw 2 handsome young men coming in, his eyes lit up first, and then his face showed alertness. What are you doing? What else can you do here? Xiejin walked to the counter and leaned lazily against the counter. Get me some medicine. I don't have any medicinal materials here, the boy said vigilantly, and then he was ready to run away and call for help. If you want to buy medicine, turn right on the street, there are many medicine shops. I love to buy here, Xiejin said lazily. Didn't Chu Nanyi tell you to be polite to customers? The boy was startled when he heard this, and then the alertness and vigilance on his face slowly disappeared, and he said lightly, I don't understand what you said. What medicine do you want? What do you sell here? Everything you want, we have here. Xiejin smiled lightly. Didn't you ask me to turn right just now? The boy choked. He's just a kid, why are you fussing with him? Xian Yuanyao spoke up. Buy the medicine and go back quickly, we shouldn't stay outside for too long. Since the boy knew Chu Nanyi, then this medicine shop was obviously managed by Chu Nanyi. Xian Yuanyao was not worried about being discovered, and Xiejin's carefree attitude didn't seem to be a cause for concern. He just couldn't stand Xiejin's teasing attitude wherever he went. Xiejin turned his head to look at Xian Yuanyao, smiled, said nothing, and asked the boy for a few medicines. Well, to be precise, they should be a few poisons. Scorpions, centipedes, poisonous spiders, toads, lizards, snake powder. No wonder there were none in the medicine shops outside. The young man carefully wrapped several herbs in special paper bags, lowered his head and handed them to Xiejin, with a very respectful attitude. Young master. Xiejin took it and threw 2 ingots of 10 taels of silver. Is it enough? The young man was fair and honest. and said, "Not enough." Xiejin took out 100 taels of silver note and gave it to him without saying a word. "If it's not enough, let Chunan put it on his clothes, and you can keep the extra to buy candy." After saying that, he turned around and left with Xianyuan Yao. The young man silently put away the silver note and 2 ingots of silver, and watched the two leave. "Why did you buy so many poisons?" Xiejin glanced at him. "I don't want to tell you." Xianyuan Yao paused. "Didn't you ask me to work hard?" Xiejin raised the medicine bag in his hand. "I'm working very hard now. Don't ask too many questions. If you ask too many questions, I will have to answer them one by one, which will distract my attention." Xianyuan Yao. Xiejin looked forward, turned around and walked back, no longer paying attention to Xianyuan Yao. Frowning, Xianyuan Yao stared at his tall and straight back, and finally couldn't help but speak. "A real man should be upright, and can't be angry like a young wife. Xiejin, you said it yourself." "I am a young wife." Xiejin glanced at him. "Who told you I am a real man?" Xianyuan Yao's expression froze. "Tell me clearly, who is whose wife?" "I am your wife." These 2 sentences echoed in his ears, and Xianyuan Yao's expression was very subtle for a while. Well, Xiejin has indeed become a young wife now, and even her anger is so calm and natural. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 599. After buying the medicinal materials, Xiejin did not stay on the street for long and quickly returned to their temporary house. He ordered someone to prepare a vacant study. Xiejin entered the study and started tinkering with the medicinal materials he had just bought. Xianyuan Yao wanted to follow him in and take a look, but he couldn't help but feel ashamed. Especially since Xiejin didn't ask him to come in with him. But he didn't know what to do when he was alone, and even drinking tea felt boring. Xianyuan Yao stood in the yard, and the more he thought about it, the more uncomfortable he felt. This was the first time Xiejin had a cold war with him. Was this a cold war? Xianyuan Yao frowned tightly and went over what Xiejin had said several times in his mind. "Tell me clearly, who is whose wife?" "I am the daughter-in-law." "I was originally the little daughter-in-law." "Who told you that I am a man who stands upright and upright?" The corner of Xianyuan Yao's mouth twitched slightly, realizing for the first time that his wife needed to be coaxed, and that there was actually such a thing as a cold war between the 2 men. Looking up at the closed door, he sighed and couldn't help but start thinking, how does the husband coax the daughter-in-law into being angry at home? Apologize and say a few sweet words? Or give me some rouge and gouache? Xiejin definitely doesn't need rouge gouache, so it would be feasible to give him a handy weapon, but I guess he doesn't lack any weapons either. Xianyuan Yao scratched the tip of his nose. It was the first time he encountered this situation and he really didn't know what to do. "Yao Yao, you can coax me." This sentence suddenly sounded in his ears again. Xianyuan Yao took a deep breath and planned to lower his body to coax him, but then he thought about it. Xiejin's fox takes advantage of him every day. Now if he really go and coax him, I wonder if he will raise his tail to the sky. But if we don't coax, will the Cold War continue like this? What if things are delayed? What if he is in a bad mood, acts impulsively, and causes big trouble? These are critical times. If this fox makes an impulsive mistake again, it will not be as simple as taking off a layer of fox skin. They are grasshoppers on a boat. They messed up the mission. When they get back, let alone meritorious service and promotion. It's hard to say whether he can even leave the imperial study room. There was a battle between heaven and man in his heart for a long time, and Xianyuan Yao tried hard to convince himself that he was putting the overall situation first. Besides, everyone recognized her as his wife, so what else could he do? Is it possible to let the little wife bow her head first? Never mind. Xian Yuanyao calmed down and took the initiative to knock on the door of the study. He pushed the door open and walked in. He saw Xiejin standing in front of the long desk, concentrating on mixing the medicinal materials, and did not react at all to his entry. Xian Yuanyao stood in front of the door and watched quietly for a while. This fox's appearance is beyond words, delicate and handsome, and his whole body is full of admirable elegance. At this time, he looks so focused on his work that he looks even more noble. No wonder those ladies in the books always like to fall in love with scholars or opera singers vigorously. Xiejin's appearance is much nobler than those handsome scholars and opera singers. If you really want to beckon those who have not left the imperial court in the imperial capital, the girls would all fall madly into his arms. Well, even those who have been married may not be able to resist it. Xian Yuanyao admired it for a while, then walked over and coughed lightly. Do you need my help? Xiejin didn't even raise his head, and his tone was unusually calm. No need. Xian Yuanyao hesitated. I can give you a start. Xiejin said nothing. Ajin Xian Yuanyao raised his hand and scratched the tip of his nose. The Prime Minister's belly can support a boat. Who is the Prime Minister? Xiejin finally turned to look at him, and there didn't seem to be much dissatisfaction on his face. I am just a small fifth-rank official. I am soft-spoken and have a small belly. How can I be so big? Xian Yuanyao couldn't help but wonder. You go and have a rest. I can do it by myself here. After Xiejin finished speaking, he turned around and started mixing the poisons again. It should be completed before evening. Xian Yuanyao became even more frustrated. Can you do it yourself? It sounds like he is superfluous. Arjin angry, Xian Yuanyao has never coaxed anyone before. At this moment, he could only lower his body and imagine how his father coaxed his mother and concubine in the past. Madam, you have a lot of people. Don't act like a husband care about it. Xiejin's expression froze and he almost burst into laughter. Fortunately, he lowered his head and was not facing Xian Yuanyao, otherwise Xian Yuanyao would have been able to see the corners of his mouth twitching violently at that moment. However, Xiejin had good self-control, and his calm and indifferent expression returned in an instant. Ajin. Didn't Yao Yao say that I'm not serious? I'm just doing serious things now, he said seriously. You're right, you have to do it seriously when you receive a task. You can't take advantage of the opportunity of a business trip to cheat, otherwise you will go back. No way to do business. Xian Yuanyao couldn't help but hesitated again. Besides, this case of the Yun family is of great importance and is of a bad nature. The power of the Yun family is also intricate and huge, and cannot be ignored in the slightest. Xiejin continued with a serious expression, we have to work hard to do it. Xian Yuanyao nodded secretly. What he said was absolutely right. If he had said these words before the Cold War, he would have nodded repeatedly. But at this time, the more I heard it, the more uncomfortable it became. Xian Yuanyao silently looked at Xiejin's profile, which was so serious and focused that he was unusually focused, and secretly thought that only a ghost would believe it if it wasn't out of anger. Well, actually he did not do very well. After all, I have already promised Xiejin, so I shouldn't be so reserved. Although this guy looks unruly and always speaks out of tune, he actually does a lot of work and the progress of the secret investigation is quite fast. And I don't know if he is afraid of scaring him. In the past few months, except for taking advantage of him, Xiejin has not done anything that goes beyond the rules. Thinking of this, Xian Yuanyao suddenly felt a little guilty. The study was quiet for a long time. The little leopard who was lost in thought did not notice that someone was secretly looking at him with the corner of his eye. He just frowned more and more, and his cheeks flushed slightly. I don't know what kind of difficult decision he made in his heart. After a long time, he looked up at Xiejin, clenched his fists nervously, and walked forward with steady ste. The regent is a yandere who needs to be pampered. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 600. Xiejin's eyes were deep, and there seemed to be a special luster floating in his eyes. Seeing that he was silent, Xianyuanyao was about to say a few more nice words, but was pulled into his arms by Xiejin, and then his lips were blocked tightly, making it airtight. Xianyuanyao was stunned. That familiar aura enveloped him again, with a bit of uneasiness that made his heart beat faster. Xianyuanyao subconsciously wanted to struggle, but was held tightly in his arms. He found that he couldn't break free from Xiejin's arm. Yao Yao, a soft voice sounded in my ears, lazily and with a bit of confusion. I want to apologize sincerely. Wasn't it too perfunctory just now? Xianyuanyao's handsome face flushed slightly with annoyance. Let me go. Didn't Yao Yao come to apologize? Xiejin lowered his eyebrows and looked at him with a calm voice. Are you angry again? Xianyuanyao was suffocated. Which daughter-in-law hugged her husband like this? Xiejin was silent and slowly let go of him. Then Yao Yao hug me. Xianyuanyao didn't respond. Do it again. Xiejin let go of him and pretended to be like a bird. Don't say I didn't give you a chance. As soon as he finished speaking, he was about to lean into Xianyuanyao's arms. Xianyuanyao took a step back. He wanted to say that he was not as shameless as him, but he was afraid that Xiejin would continue to have a cold war with him, so he held back. However, he is indeed not as shameless as Xiejin. Yao Yao, seeing that he was not moving, Xiejin stood up straight, reached out to lift his chin, and looked directly at the embarrassment in his eyes. What do you mean by a man who is so coquettish? Xianyuanyao waved away his claws. I am a gentleman. Can I compare with a romantic guy like you? Gentleman. Xiejin secretly smiled in his heart, but continued to remain calm on his face. I have changed my ways for you, and Yao Yao still wants to hold me accountable for my past behavior. Xianyuanyao hesitated. It's not like I'm pursuing. So Yao Yao means that I am not a gentleman enough. Xianyuanyao was speechless. How could Xiejin not be a gentleman enough? He has absolutely nothing to do with being a gentleman. But there seems to be nothing good about a gentleman. He is upright but pedantic, and he keeps the rules like an eminent monk, which is too boring. After scratching his head, he returned to the topic. Are you still angry? Xiejin asked. What do you think? What does he think? He's not a roundworm in his stomach. How do you know if he's angry or not? But since he came with a coaxing attitude, he naturally couldn't give up halfway. Xianyuanyao hesitated for a moment. What do you want? Can I do whatever I want? Xianyuanyao said, as long as it's not too much. What is the standard for going too far? Xiejin raised his eyebrows slightly. Committing adultery and violating the law, bullying men and dominating women. Xianyuanyao frowned. I mean, don't be too harsh on me. Why did I go too far? Xiejin was wronged. Did I use force on you? Xianyuanyao's face turned red instantly. Shut up. Xiejin, really shut up. Xianyuanyao took a deep breath. What do you want? I didn't think about it. Xiejin reached out and pulled him over, pinching his face. Yao Yao, how can I bear to get angry with you and have a cold war? I just want to tell you that our relationship now is different from before. Likewise, it's okay to be a little intimate from time to time. Don't you think it's weird if you still have to be serious when you're with the person you like? Xianyuanyao remained silent. Now that I have someone I care about, even if I don't think about myself, I still have to think more about you. Xiejin's eyes softened, and his voice was as soft and pleasant as cotton wool, which made people's hearts tingle. Do you think I can still be with you, or are you still as willful and misbehaving as before? Xianyuanyao muttered, that's not what I meant. I understand what you mean. Xiejin sighed. I promise not to hold you back, okay? Xianyuanyao was silent for a moment. Not to hold him back. Having said that, I forgot who is the protagonist of this mission? The mission is yours. I followed here just to protect you, Xian Yuanyao said calmly. The mission is completed. You are the one who will go back and be promoted to a higher rank. There is no benefit to me. Why are you so useless? Xiejin frowned. The Lord doesn't reward you. Xian Yuanyao glanced at him. What's the reward? I was originally the prince, and now I am the commander of the Obsidian army. Even if I really want a reward, at most I can only give some verbal praise or some money. How can I be promoted to a prince? Not to mention that his father is still there. Even if he does not have the relationship with his father, this amount of credit is not enough to directly promote him to the prince. Besides, he didn't intend to ask for any reward. What Yao Yao said makes people feel really uncomfortable, Xiejin said in a lonely tone. The errand is well done. My lord, I have to give him a few days off to have a good rest. Is it possible that Yao Yao is not looking forward to it at all? Xian Yuan Yao. Besides, I plan to use this credit to ask for something from the Lord. Xiejin smiled lightly. It seems that Yao Yao has no such idea at all. Xian Yuanyao was silent for a moment and instantly understood what he meant. That's not the case. He hesitated, his tone obviously a little embarrassed. What if the Lord doesn't agree? I think you should put your official career first, and we can take things slowly. The Lord is not too worried to begin with. If you object too strongly, if you miss the opportunity for promotion under this condition, you may even make the Lord angry, and the gain will be more than the loss. Xiejin frowned slightly, but this opportunity is really rare. Let's not take risks yet. Xian Yuanyao shook his head. The master hates not distinguishing between public and private matters. It's best not to mix emotional matters with official matters. Find an opportunity in the future to slowly test the master's attitude, or... He frowned. Maybe we can go to the queen and tell her. Her Majesty is gentle and tolerant. Maybe she will help us. Xiejin didn't say anything, but thought about the day when they had dinner in the Dajhan Palace. Nan 11's expression seemed to have understood something a long time ago, and there was no strange expression on her face, but more like acquiescence. He nodded slightly, his heart moved. Okay, listen to you. Xian Yuanyao raised his eyes slightly. So this is considered a reconciliation. I didn't have a cold war with Yao Yao. Xiejin kissed his face. I was just teasing you. Xian Yuanyao frowned. Yao Yao, don't be angry, Xiejin said quickly. A real man should be broad-minded. I, a young wife, need your tolerance. Xian Yuanyao. Who did Yao Yao learn that coaxing phrase from? Xiejin smiled meaningfully. King Huainan. Many men in the world coax their wives in this way. Do you need to learn it? Xian Yuanyao stretched out his hand and pushed him away. I learned it by myself. Xiejin raised his eyebrows, but I think Yao Yao is still a little rusty, and it seems not smooth enough. Do you want to do it again? Xian Yuanyao glared at him. Have you prepared your medicine? Don't worry, Xiejin said, just prepare it before dusk, it won't delay things. Xian Yuanyao said, since you don't need my help, then you can tinker with it slowly. I'll go to sleep for a while. After that, he turned and walked out. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix.